Before we begin this episode, I want to thank the Spoiler Force patrons for their patronage. Thank you to Mong Her, Orion Vang, Lor Su Yang, and Yilang Li. Thank you guys for the support.
This is Brianna Roberts, the voice of Miranjo from Ranking of Kings. You're watching Spoiler Force.
All right, so this is episode 129 of Spoiler Force Podcast. My name is Ricky. Thank you for tuning in. So this week's guest is someone that I was very excited to have on this podcast here. As you can see, I'm still wearing the same shirt from episode 128, and that's because this is recorded in the same day. The guest I have here, she is the voice of Miranjo from Ranking of Kings, one of my favorite animes this season. So let me bring my guest here, Brianna Roberts. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier, I spoke with Emmy like a few hours just before we started recording, and I'm just so excited to talk to you about Ranking of Kings and how you got the role of Miranjo and just your thoughts on the story. Yeah, I'm just really excited for that.
Well, I'm so happy that you're a fan of the show. It is just a fantastic show. Everybody should watch it.
I was telling Emmy too, like, I don't know if you felt this way, but I kind of thought this season for Ranking of Kings, like, it wasn't bad, but it was like a very big underdog compared to the other animes that came out this year. And I just I wasn't like iffy on it. Like one of my cousins from Wisconsin was like, Ricky, you need to watch this. This is the next thing. It's from Wit. You like Wit Studios, from Attack on Titan. They've done seasons 1 to 3, and he's like, you'll like this, dude. Just watch it. And he sent me a clip of one of the fight scenes in Ranking of Kings. I was like, oh man, it kind of looks like anime Adventure Time. I was like, I'll give it a shot. And so I watched it, and episodes 1 and 2, I was hooked. And so I was like, man, this is gonna go somewhere. So what were your thoughts on just the season overall? Just like, did you think that it was an underdog season, or do you feel like there wasn't enough exposure, or what do you think?
I definitely feel like there wasn't enough exposure. I feel like it was slow for people to start being excited about. Like, you didn't hear a lot of buzz about it until a few episodes into the show. And even then, still, it was a really slow process of people getting on board with it. And I think probably, hopefully, season 2 will have a more quick following of people who have been hearing about it after the simuldub has come out. I know for me that when I went in for the very first recording of the episode, well, I say went in, we were still recording remotely for the first few episodes of the show. So when I saw it from my home booth where we are right now, the first thing I was struck by was the animation style that is so unique. It's beautiful and just different from really any other anime that I've seen anytime recently, if ever. I don't know. It seemed pretty unique to me. But yeah, I was happy to see people get more excited about it as time went on.
Yeah, Ranking of Kings definitely had like a very Western animation style to it.
Hmm.
Just like how Bochi looks, how Kage looks. Like Kage looks like scrambled eggs, but like just all black. Like that's what he looks like.
I
And,
forgot about that, but yes.
but like it looked really cartoonish. That I think that's what
Mhm.
made people have like I guess not a bad impression, but like they kind of hesitated on it.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
once the story progressed, the conspiracies of everything of the kingdom, seeing Bochi and Kage adventure outside, and then like just watching the story unfold, even up to Miranjo's story, everything about this show was like every episode was a cliffhanger, and I hated it. I was watching it weekly, so I was like, "Oh my gosh, man! Like this is terrible." And then my cousin here, who's my roommate, he was wait like he was kind of hesitant on it too, because he was like, "Yeah, I know it's hot, but I'm gonna wait out." And I was like, "Dude, you have to watch it now because it's once it's different when you're watching it weekly versus binging it all." And so
Mhm.
I think he started watching it right around episode 10 or 11, like right towards the end, and then
Mhm.
he binged it within a night and was like, I'm hooked. Like I hate you, Ricky. Why am I doing this to myself? And it's just, I can go on about Ranking of Kings. Like it's so good, and I just really wish that whether the folks who watch this or listen to this, or who who haven't discovered Ranking of Kings, please do. You can watch it in either sub or dub. I watched the dub after the sub was done, and you guys did an amazing job. Like I was telling Emmy, like who, because I know she helped do ADR for the show. The
Mhm.
cast with you and everyone else is really great on the show.
The cast was fantastic. Caitlin Glass, the director of the English dub, did an amazing job putting together such a fantastic cast. And I feel like she made good selections for the English cast that still captured and sounded similar to the Japanese version of the recording. So uh, I think it just came together so beautifully. And I'm so thrilled that you're a fan of it.
Oh yeah, I like before I got Emmy on the show, like when it was because last week I announced this episode was going to be 128, but then once Emmy came on, I switched it. But then I was like, man, Brianna's the first person that I had that's on Ranking of Kings. I was geeking out about it, and then like a lot of like I said before, a lot of my friends and family were like, "What is Ranking of Kings?" And I was like, "You guys are missing out." So, but before we dive deeper into our thoughts on Ranking of Kings, though, Brianna, I do want to let the fans know, like, how did you get started into voice acting? I know you did some stage play or musicals before, but can you kind of go a bit more into depth of how you got started into this career of yours?
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, I did theater. I've been doing theater since I was just, a wee little thing. And I actually went to college for film production to work on the production side of things. And after I graduated, I worked as a producer for a small production company. And we were creating an original animation project. And at like many small production studios, we were on a budget, a small budget. And my boss was like, "Hey, Brianna, you're an actor. Why don't you just voice this character and, save us a buck?" basically. And I was like, "Well, sure. Okay. I've never done voice acting, but, I've been doing acting, so all right." So I jumped in the booth to do the prelay for the first episode, and I was like, "Oh, I really like this. I really like this." And it basically was just immediately being hooked on it. Danny Chambers and I, we went to college together, and she was already dipping her toes into the world of voice acting and dubbing anime. And I remember after I started recording that show, I was like, "Danny, what do I need to do to progress in this?" I was like, "I love it, I love it, I love it." So, of course, she steered me in the direction of taking voiceover specific classes, because the art of voiceover is different from doing stage. There's no person you got to reach on the back row when you're doing voiceover. Um, so I just started taking every class that I could find that was specific to voiceover. Um, Man, I took so many classes and I just loved it. And eventually I got signed with an agency, and it just kind of slowly went from there. I don't want to say I like catapulted, it was very slow. I was one of those that was like slow and steady wins the race type of thing. But I stuck it out, and here I am.
That is fantastic. I love hearing people's journeys to just getting into voice acting or just acting in general, right? Because usually it's always the same thing where people do just go to school for it, or kind of like in your case, they were on stage and then they transitioned over or have a music background. So there's various types of ways, and it's just so cool to see that all these avenues kind of lead into like how a lot of these voice actors are at now, where they're kind of just all working together and it's like a hub now. So you guys are all like networking together. I think that's really cool.
Dallas has a wonderful community of voice actors. So many wonderful people. Of course, Dallas is where Crunchyroll slash Funimation is located. So there's a great hub of actors here.
Do you go to the studio from time to time,
We
or are
do
you still
now.
recording? Okay.
We are fully in studio now. We were recording remotely up until the spring season of shows, and now we're all fully back in studio. So that's been, a fun transition. But it's nice to see everybody in person again, because it'd been so long since
Yeah.
we had seen each other.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives close to the Crunchyroll studio, so I actually seen it. But I've never like gone more than just like seeing the outside of the building. Like, "All right, I'm good. I know where it's at," and then I just leave. But how did you get the role of Miranjo? I know Caitlin Glass did the casting. So how
Mhm.
did you land this role for this character?
She sent out auditions for the show, and I auditioned. I I'm trying to remember. I don't think Miranjo was actually one of the characters that there were sides for. A lot of times when they're casting a show, they either don't know what characters are going to be showing up, or they'll just give you the sides for, maybe 4 of the main characters or something, and then you'll read for those, and they might cast you for another one based on those auditions, which is what happened in this case. I know I had read for Hilling, and I don't remember. There was another female character that I remember reading for, but it wasn't Miranjo. And I remember when I had my first session to record for Miranjo, which at that point we didn't know her name was Miranjo. It
Right.
was just the
Still the
magic
mirror.
mirror.
Yeah.
Because because it was a simuldub, we weren't ahead either. Like, we only knew what had been released in Japan. We didn't know like episodes ahead. So I remember when I recorded, because she wasn't in episode 1, she appeared in episode 2, and it was just like one line, maybe it was 2. And I remember Caitlin saying, I have no idea if this character is going to come back or how big she'll be, but I feel like she's got to be big. She's like, because Maya Sakamoto voices her in the original Japanese version. And of course, she's a wonderful voice actress who plays many amazing roles. So she's like, I couldn't imagine that they would cast her in this role if she's not going to become more further into the storyline, which of course was the case. She became a very heavy part of the plot. But yeah, early on in those first few episodes, when we didn't know much about her, obviously didn't know her backstory, we were just kind of figuring it out as we went. But it was so exciting. Caitlin and I were both so excited to see the character grow into so much more, and to have this wonderful backstory to the villain of the show. It's fantastic.
Yeah, the growth of Miranjo, like seeing her, like when you finally discover that there was so much more to her than just the mirror and her magic, and then like the part where Boss takes Daida's body down to the lower
Mhm.
levels, and he's like dancing with the doll version of her. Like that
Yeah.
was really weird, but then like it kind of made the mystery even more, because like what's her obsession with Daida, or like why is she doing all this for
Mhm.
Boss, and then just like her backstory was so sad, but then at the same time I was so mad because before that they showed before her backstory showed, it was they kind of showcase how Bochi's mom died, and
Mhm.
it kind of like, for viewers, for at least for me, it built up a lot of hate towards Miranjo. Like, oh my god, like this lady is crazy. Like,
Yes.
what's her end game? What does she want? And then when they revealed what happened too, is like you can kind of see where she lost her way, and
Mhm.
it's just, oh man, this anime is just so freaking good.
The
I
writing is so fantastic for as a viewer to go from hating the villain and being like, this person is terrible, to by the end you might be rooting for her. The character development that happens for her, and so many of, like, the character development for all the characters is so good. It shows what good writing can accomplish in 12 episodes, 24 episodes. uh when the writing is there and the story structure is there, you can have so many characters that get really fleshed out. And that's how this show was. So you really feel like so many of these characters.
Yeah, I loved how they just, for the show, for at least for Miranjo, like when you see that she's there, it's like you know what she's doing is bad, but at the same time you can kind of agree with, like, okay, there's a certain extent. But what about you, Brianna? Like when you were reading these lines or watching it on screen as you're dubbing this, what was going through your head just seeing this character unfold?
In the beginning, obviously, we didn't know her backstory because we didn't have that information. So we, I say we as in me and Caitlin, chose to play her more in the traditional villain sound and archetype. And we were following the lead too from the Japanese voice actress and how she was portraying her voice, which was kind of sinister and up to no good. But I really enjoyed, because her character development happened so gradually, that as a voice actor, even though I only knew a few episodes ahead of where we were recording, that I was able to help her grow vocally, I guess, because she changed. Like, if you go and you listen to Evil Miranjo from the first few episodes before she has had her transformation to how she is by the end, there's a big vocal change. And I just think it's beautiful the way that they wrote the story, and again, getting to follow the lead or the cues from Maya Sakamoto and how she was choosing to do Miranjo. That really was helpful to be able to follow in her footsteps in a sense.
Did you did you have any thoughts on like just how Miranjo's uh plans were in the show? Because like she and Boss made this huge conspiracy throughout this whole show where you don't even know who the good guy is in their own kingdom. Like with Boss, like he's supposed to be the strongest, and you find out that he's doing all these things from behind the scenes, and Miranjo's helping him do it. And then like with Daida too, like there's a little thing between her and Daida where Daida kind of wants to trust her, and then he finds out like it's been a whole ploy. But then when he finds out who she really is, he kind of holds back too. He's like, oh, I don't know, I kind of want to help her now. So like what are your thoughts on just like on those parts of Miranjo's character development, just seeing how like there was just so much more layers to the story than just surface
Mhm.
level.
It was really fascinating to dive into her doing these terrible things, but doing them for what she sees as a good reason. And it is all based in love for Boss and Daida. And the rejection and the hurt that she faced in her past uh, made her have this undying loyalty to Boss, and her wanting to do everything within her power to help his dreams come true. And in doing that, leads her astray to where she's no longer really walking the straight and narrow. She's definitely veered off
Right.
from from the path of righteousness, so to speak, but that she finds her way back again through love, but in another way. So it is interesting to see love is what led her astray, and then love is also what brought her back to the good in herself.
What did you think of her like the when they finally showed the backstory for Miranjo? What was your thoughts on just like, because what the village does to her mom and to her when she's a child, like that's terrifying. What was your thoughts on it? Like when you were watching that, what was
I
going through your head?
cried. I was like, what? I was like, this is horrendous. I was like, she justified
Right.
in everything that she's done. Like, this is terrible. It was like, I did not anticipate that being her backstory. And it just it just breaks your heart. And the little Miranjo, her voice, like
Oh,
you just want the
I've cried
heartstrings.
watching so much, like so many episodes of this show. I was like, I've never like watched an anime where it made me cry almost every episode, like from Bochi to Kage to Boss to Miranjo's story. Like my God, like I didn't. I was like, really, this anime is like it's supposed to be. Isn't this supposed to be like an adventure anime? I'm feeling all types of emotions now.
I know. It's such an interesting show because it feels very traditional fantasy, and yet it doesn't pull any of the traditional fantasy tropes, so to say. Like you never like as you're watching, you don't know where it's going. Like these twists and turns and reveals are surprising, but they always make sense. Like they're not out of left field and you're like, "Huh, that doesn't make any sense to the story." It all makes sense. It's just, oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Did you have any thoughts on like the whole pact she made with the demon at the end, where like right when you think like they're gonna live, and then she sacrifices herself to let Boss go?
So good. I hope that we get to see more of that in the next season, um, because she kind of makes a promise at the end that she's going to try to help the demon. And we see the cute little baby demon with baby Miranjo and baby demon lord, which the baby demon is voiced by Danny Chambers, which makes me so excited because she and I went to college together and we kind of started this voice acting journey together. So to have we have very rarely ever been in shows together or ever shared the screen together, and I guess technically we still didn't because it was baby Miranjo who talked to baby demon. So, but it's still exciting that our characters are intertwined.
Oh, that's wonderful. I like that you and Danny are able to grow together in this community and to work together in voice acting. I think that's really cool to have someone to kind of just that way you're not by yourself. Like it's already hard enough doing like whether you're trying to be a content creator or an actor or anything in entertainment by yourself of all things. So it's good to have someone that you can work with and also share networks with, and just build more bridges that way.
Yes,
Uh,
the dream is to one day share role, or not share roles, but be in a show that I share with Danny that our characters get to interact a lot. Like I said, we've never really had many opportunities to interact on the screen. So that'll be like, so exciting whenever one day I believe that will happen.
Since you've been doing dubbing for a while now, I kind of want to backtrack a little bit to when you started in theater, because again, with theater and music, that it's a great gateway to get into, or at least it helps you with your style of acting that you're doing now. I think I've read one of your tweets, and you said like, um, what was it? Something about doing roles that when you were on stage, you did more like comedic roles, and then in animation you're doing like more serious, like more I guess just more not evil but more villainous type characters. So how is
Uh-huh.
that transition like when you go from being such a good character to someone who's more villainous?
It's so interesting because obviously voice acting is based so much on your voice, and just having a lower register voice for a woman that lends itself to villains and moms and, warrior princesses, things like that. So that's just naturally where I have fallen into within voice acting. But on stage, I always play the goofy characters. I'm the goofy characters, the comedic ones, or just like I am almost 6 feet tall, so I am very tall and very thin. So I think physically I lend myself to comedy very well. Sometimes I've played the evil stepsister in Cinderella twice. Um, like I always get cast in those, and I have so much fun. But it is interesting. I would love to get to use my comedic skills that I use so often on stage to get to use them for voice acting. But we'll see. We'll see.
You know, when you work on stage, you have to project more to the audience,
Mhm.
like to so the audience in the back can hear you. As you mentioned before, do you find it easier now? Now that you're just recording towards the mic, you kind of like save your voice.
Yeah, okay, so funny story. When my very first class that was specific to dubbing anime, it was with Kyle Phillips. This was quite a few years ago. And I remember I got in the booth, and I literally had just come from rehearsal for Young Frankenstein. So it was a musical, and I was playing Elizabeth, again, the crazy funny character. Um, so I was all, hyped up on that. And I'm like about to take this class that's on dubbing anime. Like, ah! I remember I get in the booth, and I don't even remember what we were dubbing. He had just picked some scene from some show, and we were dubbing it. And I lay down my first take, and I'm like so nervous but so excited. And I remember, he presses the little button and he comes on and he goes, Brianna, there's no back row in anime or in the audio booths. Because I just like, it just was so loud and just blew out the microphone, like no subtlety whatsoever. Uh, so then I pulled it back and as I'm hitting the microphone, pulled it back, and we went from there. But it's just so fun to me that my first experience in a class like that was literally them saying, bring it down a notch.
Have you thought about like doing any like, I guess for like Twitch and stuff like that, like just using your voice for I guess like for like online like content creating at all? Have you done any of that?
No, I haven't done any. I've thought about it, but there's just so many things to get involved with, and it's just finding the time or where you want to prioritize. I also narrate audiobooks, and so that can take a lot of time. So you just got to pick where to, I guess, direct your efforts. But that's something I've contemplated. We'll see. Maybe one day in the future.
How is that like narrating books? Because I know that at least for me, when if I'm ever listening to audiobooks, I'm very picky on who's reading the book. So do you have to like, I guess when you're reading it, I'm pretty sure it's just your speaking voice, but is there a certain way that you have to read to make it kind of stand out more, or at least pleasing to the person who's listening to it?
It depends. I end up booking to record a lot of like self-help books, ones that lend to being a little bit more engaging. I have done some novels, and that's more just talking in your normal voice, and you make your character voices, and you're just more conversational like this. But I enjoy, like, you see with my hands. I do this when I'm recording books. I'm so active in here. So I tend to book a lot of those because they want the energy almost as if you're speaking to an audience for those types of books. Um, so it's just long form reading is a totally different skill set from, reading a script for anime or video games or something, because you just, it's long form reading, and you get better at it the more that you do it, but it's definitely something you have to learn to do.
Yeah, I don't think I could do like I already struggle enough as it is to read. To do like long form reading, I can't. I would be stumbling on my words for a while. Like I think the whoever's recording would be pretty upset. Like, all right, that's enough. Just I think you're good. But I
I
mean,
do.
like,
I edit all of my own audiobooks that I record. So the trick is, as you're reading, blah 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 blah. If you stumble or something, you clap, so it peaks the audio, so you know where you have to go back to edit to fix whatever you messed up.
oh, that's a nice trick. That's a good one. Because like I do editing a little bit here when I do the podcasting. I used to be really heavy into like just editing the audio and then picking out
Mhm.
like a little like the little hiccups or the little nicks of sounds here and there. But I've been kind of lazy since I have the video option now. So
Uh-huh.
I just kind of extract what's from the video and just clip it together really quick and throw it up on the internet. But yeah, I used to just like when just editing audio, like I've learned to kind of just pick out certain sounds, or I can hear very minuscule things and it bugs me now, and I can't help it now because like whenever I have other guests on, if they don't have like a good mic or they use their headphone mics like that for the
Mhm.
iPod, you can hear like the wire like just moving around and like
Yeah.
and you can hear like the clicking. I was like, oh my god, I want to clip that out.
Uh,
So when you're doing dubs and uh in animation, have you ever, I guess, read ahead of like the manga at all? Like I know some directors don't allow you to do that, but some do. But have you chosen to read ahead of any series at all when you were doing any voiceover work?
I haven't within dubbing anime. And the reason being, dubbing anime is a little different from doing like prelay for an original project. You're not creating the character. The Japanese voice actor, or whatever language it was originally done in, which anime, typically Japanese, they have already created the character based on the manga and what the creators, producers, directors of the original work wanted. So there is a little bit of I don't want to say a box around you, but you want to match what the character is intended to be. So I try not to get my own ideas in my head by reading ahead of a character in a manga, for example, and think this is what I think this character should be, because you do it subconsciously, without realizing that you are creating what you think it should sound like or what their motivation is and things. And I like to, especially in the beginning, wait to kind of work that out with the director of the English dub and really establish it that way. Then maybe once I have the voice and the character established based on those parameters, then I might like read ahead to find out more. But I try not to get my own ideas, because sometimes it can be hard to get rid of your own ideas once they're in your head.
Yeah, have you like I know for improvising certain lines. I know there's not a lot of. I used to think there was a lot of that for at least for anime. I learned that like no, it's pretty cut and clear. Like we want you to
Yeah.
do this. But have you had any input at all for Miranjo's lines, if any, when you
No,
were recording?
we had a wonderful script writer and adapter that everything worked really well together. The only thing that Caitlin would sometimes have to change is Miranjo speaks in a much slower cadence, like she's not talking fast. So sometimes it would be overwritten, like too many words to keep the pacing for the character. So sometimes Caitlin would cut things out or make it shorter so I could keep that little bit slower flow. But I didn't ever. That's the director's job, is to come up with the words and to do what sounds best. So I don't, unless I'm asked, I don't ever project my opinion on what's being said.
Well, I think it's a little bit easier for you too, as well. I guess because since you voiced the mirror, she didn't have like any mouth flaps, so it's kind of
Mhm.
like just timing. You can actually just say your lines without having to match the mouth movements.
Yes. Oh, that was fun. That it did actually make it a little bit harder when we did then have Miranjo and we had her flaps.
Okay.
Because I had established this way that she spoke as the magic mirror, and now all of a sudden I'm having to reel it in to fit the flaps, and I'm like, oh, but I want her to be so dramatic and slow speaking, and her flaps don't correlate.
I know you've done like other shows, like My Dress Up Darling, My Hero Academia, like that. But is Miranjo? I guess would you say this is one of your more prominent roles? Because
Mhm.
I know that a lot of your other roles were like just additional characters, like even like in My Hero, you were Toga's mom,
Yeah,
and I
I've
actually
voiced a lot of moms.
yeah. uh, Actually, I got to meet Leah Clark, who voices Toga, at a convention not too long ago. So when I saw that on your resume, like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, I did not know. But like,
Yeah.
when you see yourself building your resume, are there certain like, I guess, would you say are there certain roles or in shows that you'd want to be in the future?
Um, I would love to play, like I said before, I would love to play a comedic role. I've never done any sort of recurring character that was more on the comedy spectrum. All of my recurs are typically the more serious or the mom. So I would love to get to sink my teeth into a funny bit.
If you want to start your own podcast like Spoiler Force, then sign up with Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has helped hundreds of thousands of users like me to begin their podcasting journey. With easy to use tools, you can effectively get your podcast into different platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and more. You can view your stats, create audio clips, and even have your own podcasting website. Buzzsprout offers ideas, tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you improve your podcast. Follow the link below, and once you sign up, you'll get a $20 Amazon gift card. This will let Buzzsprout know that I sent you and will also support Spoiler Force Podcast. If you want a simpler way to record both video and audio for your podcast, then sign up with StreamYard. StreamYard is the perfect program to create podcasts, host live streams, and even do video calls. There are many tools that can help you create and design your own personal studio. You can screen share, read live comments, and stream to different destinations like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can also download your video and audio once you're done with your recording session. Follow the link below, and once you sign up with the basic or pro plan, you'll earn a $10 credit to use for StreamYard. Happy podcasting.
I've been very fortunate to work consistently, but doing a lot of, like you said, the side characters and lots of moms, lots of teachers, uh, characters like that. And I love it. I'm so grateful to get to work. But so Miranjo was my most significant role, I would say, where she was really a part of carrying the plot forward. I was just so grateful for the opportunity to do it because I've done a gazillion stage shows. Like I've done so many shows, and I've gotten to work on character development for stage characters and see how the character progresses from start to finish. And it was really fun and meaningful to finally get to do that with a character that had so much development on screen as opposed to just on the stage. So that was very special.
I know for acting in a booth, it's much different than when people are watching you, like on stage or on film. For you, Brianna, did you like that difference, like where you can express yourself differently in the booth? Like you don't have to worry about like making funny faces or having to do like certain emotions. You can just, as long as you get the voice recording right, then you were good with that. What are your thoughts on just that?
I'm still pretty active in the booth, and I think it just comes from my foundation being stage. I'm very physical. I move a lot. I'll stand like how I feel like the character would be standing in real life. So I'll try to have my posture like I feel the character is. Um, Early on, I hit the mic too many times. I'm much better about it now. I keep my hands over here, because I just would use my hands so much. So for me, a lot of it is the same as far as physicality. Obviously, your feet are planted; you're not walking or moving around. Um, and the difference too with stage, you can feel that feedback from the audience. You hear the laughter when you're being funny. You hear the silence when something you're saying is dramatic or serious or meaningful. Like you can just feel the weight of it in the room. So that is different because you're in a box, like deprivation chamber where you don't hear anything, you don't see anything, it's just you. So sometimes you almost have to get more raw, I think, because you're having to pull completely from within yourself. You're not able to draw off of what the audience is giving you back. So it can be harder for sure in that sense.
Yeah, I spoke with Mark Witten about like that too. Like he talks about like, he it's so much different when you're in the booth and you don't have to worry about like people watching you, but then like you're allowed to do certain things, but then also you have to remember like even though you're recording your voice, you still want to project what's needed on the script. So
Hmm.
you can't just like go like way off and just think that it's good. You still have to
Hmm.
portray that certain emotion or give off the same emotion. It's just now you can do it in a more, I guess, exciting manner, or more like you don't have to like be so um aware of your surroundings when you're recording just in the booth. uh
Hmm.
now that you're back in studios, like is it more comfortable for you not just to be in the studio recording sessions, like instead of like back at home recording at home?
As an actor, I prefer to be in the studio because when you're home, even as good of a process if we have figured out for doing remote recording, you are still having to take your mind off of the acting to make sure that your gain is at the right level for however loud you're being with your line, that your internet is connected, that your neighbor's lawnmower isn't. There's so many other elements that you're having to be thinking about. So I would feel myself get distracted sometimes from the character and from the words. And I found myself more often having to um, do more than one take. I mean, most people you'll do more than one take, but like finding myself needing like a moment to like get, especially if it's a more serious emotion or something, to like redirect back into it. Whereas when I'm there in the studio and the amazing engineers are taking care of everything, I don't have to worry about the neighbor next door with the lawnmower or the dog barking. I can just completely focus my mind on the character and the script and the story, and I don't have to worry about my internet dropping out or anything like that. So I prefer being in studio.
Right. Yeah, back at Nishi Fest, Caitlin's panel, she talked about that too, like how she would have to work at home or work with actors at home, and like there would be like a long script recording, and in the moment like the internet like just dropped for a little bit, or like there's like that buzz, you have to go back
Hmm.
and redo that whole session again. And it's just like it's so crazy to see how much work goes into it, especially when you're just when you think it's easier at home, but then like there's so much more you have to, like you said, there's so much more distractions, so much more
Hmm.
you have to worry about. And even like for example like your booth, a lot of actors had to do like their own makeshift booths or use like, I remember Rico Fajardo was telling me like he had to make a booth out of like uh the cushions on the sofa,
Yeah.
just so that he can have, just so that he can record better, or like people who record in closets and stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
it's a lot of creativity on that end when you're trying to just record at home.
Hmm. For sure.
Have you thought about going to conventions at all, for I guess just meeting fans or any followers?
Yeah, I would love to. I have a convention agent. I literally got signed with a convention agency like right before I got pregnant with my baby. So that took me off for a while because I just didn't want to travel while being pregnant, just with the state of things. And then now he's an EDB baby. So I'm still not traveling, but I am starting to book conventions for next year. So if you would like to meet me, I would love to meet you guys. So put in a request to your local con asking for Brianna Roberts, and they can reach out to my convention agent, and hopefully we can meet in person.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'll get to meet you soon at a convention here in Texas. I know there's lots of small cons and big cons here, anime conventions, comic book conventions. So hopefully I get to run into you soon.
Yeah.
But I forgot like when I did initially reach out to you, I forgot you told me that you just had the baby,
Yeah.
and that brought everything back up, because like I remember, oh man, no wonder, like because we were supposed to record, if timing was right, we were supposed to record like weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
Like we could. I'm just so glad that you were really patient with me too. Like just like sorting out like how's this weekend? How's this weekend? No, oh man, like I'm just so glad. Like I was like, you know what? your personal life is more important. So I can wait. I don't need to rush anything. So,
Well, I
but
appreciate it. I'm happy
yeah,
we finally made it work out.
yeah, I know. It's just whenever I'm booking like guests or especially like actors, like I completely understand when there's personal life issues or personal things or just things in your schedule that you can't control. I'm not gonna get mad. It's just like okay, I get it. It's just it's really cool that when especially like people like you, Brianna, like, that respond back and say, hey, this is what's going on. Because I've been ghosted a few times without any explanation, so it sucks. But when people respond back and say, even if they can't make it back on the show or even if they're not interested, at least there's still a response back. For me, I read that as there was the mutual respect there. It's professional. You just I would do the same. I don't want to tell you something and then leave you hanging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I appreciated your patience because I know getting lined up with my schedule was,
Yeah.
it was so
Yeah.
complicated, but you were amazing.
Oh, thank you. I like I said, plus just having a newborn baby, like come on, like there's you cannot top that. I can't be mad at that. Like that is a big responsibility. I definitely understand that. So like that is not nothing to be upset about. Like just and as well, congratulations on your baby. So
Thank you. Thank
yeah.
you. It's
Uh
so funny because have voiced, I would say the majority, if you just look at pure numbers of characters that I voiced, most of them have probably been moms. And since he was born, I hadn't voiced one mom until just I don't even know if the episodes come out yet. Just like a couple weeks ago, I finally went in the studio and it was a mom. I was like, I'm a real life mom and I'm voicing my first mom. Whereas that's like all I ever do. So it was kind of funny. Like this, I went like 10 weeks with no moms. That's what I do. I'm the Anna mom.
it's more applicable now that you can
Yes, yeah,
voice the moms
I
like
can pull from my actual emotions of being a mother.
well, it's a good thing you're working in the studio too. Like I can only imagine like when you're working from home and then you used to have the baby at home and trying
Oh,
to do voiceover.
literally his bedroom is on the other side of this wall. So if he starts crying, like all bets are off. That's why I had to wait to record when my husband was available so he could take care of him. So if he started crying, it's like, screaming child over there. Sorry.
That is great. I again, congratulations on the baby. I understand like things are just so crazy right now. So like to be able to just you know find time to do this, like I just really appreciate that. Because family and all that personal life, that's first. Like this podcast stuff, I doesn't matter to me. Like that's all. Like you have to take care of your family first. And then again, back to Ranking of Kings. Ranking of Kings had a great. They were showcasing that his family is what
Yes,
comes
yes,
first.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Lucy
uh,
Christian as healing, that relationship with her as a mother for Daida, and then
yes.
to her feelings for Boji. It's one.
I cried.
Yes,
Like
her story as a mother is one of the best portrayals of motherhood that I have seen in anime. It is fantastic.
you'd think she'd be the typical evil stepmother, the way how she
Mhm.
was treating Boji so harshly. And
Mhm.
then like in episode 2 or 3, when she comes to his room and she heals him,
Yeah.
and then you kind of like for me I kind of like I backed off a little bit, like okay, so there might be something more. Then you go to the
Yeah.
flashback of her trying to like win Boji over, and then and then this part made me cry too, because when Boji went to his mom's gravesite and he sat with the mom and Hilling saw that, I'm like, oh my god, like
So
yeah.
it, it's such a realistic look at uh relationships. I feel, even though we're in a fantasy world and there's magic and demon dogs and things like that, none of us are perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect mother. There's no such thing as a perfect relationship. And we see that. We see these people who are in positions of power who at first seem evil and terrible and how dare. And we see their story to understand why they were acting the way they were. And it is all based on relationships and love and hurt. Ugh, it's just
Yeah.
I can't tell people enough. Go watch it. Go watch it.
I and there's one that like Daida's character really like
Mhm.
stood out to me too. Like you think he's being harsh to Bochi, just to
Mhm.
find out like he cares for his brother because his mom tells him like, you need to protect him. He's
Mhm.
not good on his own, or at least in that at that point where until Bochi starts learning, and then you see Daida's like really harsh on him too, like just like his mom. Like he's just being harsh on him so that Bochi doesn't need to find a need to be king. He can just stay
Mhm.
home and rely on his family. Um, yeah, I just related to that like style of like how they, I guess, wanted to protect Boji because my dad was like that in a way, and my grandma was like that too. Like they're really harsh with their words, but then like there's a bigger picture to what they're doing. They're only doing that to protect you. They're not like trying to do it out of spite or anything.
Mhm.
For Miranjo's story, there's a part in the show where after she, I guess, and she goes to the afterlife to get Bochi and Kage back, and you see Bochi's mom talk to Bochi, like, or at least talk to Miranjo, like she sees her mom too. Like, what was
Mhm.
your thoughts on that whole sequence? Just like when Miranjo's kind of like deciding on should she just turn back to being good, or she's like, it's almost like a midlife crisis, or like she doesn't know what to do anymore because
Yeah.
now that she's seeing the people that she's hurt in the afterlife.
Mhm. Yeah, it was a very pivotal moment for her. And I think that's really when we see her shift from villain to now wanting to do good, starting to understand her a little bit more and understand what she was doing and her having regret. Because to that point, I don't know that if she had regret, I don't know that she had admitted it to herself. Um, and getting to stand face to face with her mother, who was part of her tragic past, and then face to face with Boji's mother, who, as we know, that was part of her villainous
Yeah.
past. Um, to have these two things side by side telling her that she should be good uh, after all that she's done, basically giving her a choice. That was such a good scene. And if I recall, I actually think Nazi directed me on that one. I feel like he was one of the assistant directors. And he did a wonderful, wonderful job. He's very good at explaining what's going on with it because you haven't seen the whole episode whenever you go in to record. So he was very good at giving context of everything that was happening within this scene, which was a lot. And I think it turned out really good.
And what Bochi's mom says too to Miranjo, like, don't hate the sinner, hate the sin type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought that was perfect for Miranjo's character because it gives her a chance to redeem herself from all the
Mm-hmm.
all the evil acts that she's done in this whole show. And I'm like I was it just as someone who can kind of relate to that kind of character building too. Like I just thought that was really nice that to see there was opportunities for to get back at her and they didn't do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, before we do end this episode, Brianna, again, I do want to thank you for your time. I have some fan questions here
Oh boy.
for you. Yeah, so the first one here is by Van Brooks. He asks, was Boss and Mirandra's relationship romantic or familial?
I think again, it's not made explicitly clear. I think from Miranjo, I think it became a type of romantic feelings. I think it wasn't what she thought it was. I think it started out that way. I don't think Boss necessarily reciprocated those feelings. Because she was with him for when she was a child and then she grew up with him. So it is a very weird
Yeah.
relation, like very clearly weird. But I think somewhere along the line, she transitioned to her loyalty feeling like love, and then her wanting to go to all these crazy extremes to help him get what he wanted. And I think ultimately, I think she realizes in the end that it wasn't necessarily romantic love that she had for him, but just this really deep, undying loyalty.
Yeah, I was very confused too because like the morale in me was like that's just gross if like he had romantic feelings for her because you practically raised a little girl and
Hmm.
I mean, but the state of things now is just like I like if you watch in context the show that's normal at that time of the show, like during that
Hmm.
era of like that kind of like the kingdoms and the medieval
Mhm.
times, that was normal to them. But watching it in today's modern age, it's just like
How
yo, that's kind
creepy.
of, yeah, that's like But then I also agree with what you said though. Like maybe Miranjo was just blinded by her loyalty. Like she ended up just psyching herself out. Like this is to her, her love to Boss was doing everything she could in her power to make him succeed.
Mhm.
And maybe she was in love with the idea to be in love with him, or to be loyal to him, to get some sort of acknowledgement from him. and
Mhm.
and so like I'm kind of glad that the show didn't like confirm that they were in love. It was just they both had something for each other. They were helping each other out, and it just
Mhm.
didn't work.
Yeah. I think it was undefinable for them because their story and relationship was so unique. And you get the impression that it was a very long time. We're not talking about a normal lifespan, that they both lived unusually long lifespans, is kind of the feeling that I get. And so this has happened over the course of a very long time. So yeah, it is. It's a very unique and strange and interesting relationship.
Okay. We'll go to the second question here. Um, David, he asks, do you? I think we kind of touched up on this already, but maybe we can kind of clarify a little bit more. But he asks, do you have any dream role or project you'd like to work with, or work in, or have an, or hold on, let me just, because I just copy and pasted what
Yeah, yeah.
they wrote, so
All
I'm
good.
gonna try to paraphrase this. Do you have any dream role in a project, or would you like, or is there anyone that you'd like to work with? I think we've already established that. Of course, you wanted to work with Danny Chambers, but I guess, um, besides the comedic role, is there any like project that you see, or maybe that
Hmm.
you would like to be in?
Um, I would love to be in My Hero as a like a more substantial named character. I want to be I would love to be a villain actually. Voicing villains. Mwahaha. So wonderful. So I would love to be in that franchise as a character other than just Toga's mom. Um would love to do something comedic. I really, again, I love the villains. I really want to be like an over the top witch, like just your caricature of an evil witch. Like that's just what I really want to
Like
do
Wizard
that.
of Oz type witch.
Yes. I also I want to voice a dragon. Like this is
Oh,
like a
nice.
dream. I want to voice a dragon. So you don't see those come around very often, but I really want to voice a dragon.
Would you do what Benedict Cumberbatch did and like crawl around and like motion capture? Like he was very expressive playing Smaug in The Hobbit.
Yes. Oh, emotion. I would like that'd be yes, yes, yes to all of the above. Um, I would. So franchise. My Hero Academia. I guess would the question be for franchises that there is still an opportunity to be on, or like even pre-existing ones that obviously aren't still
Uh,
in
I guess
production.
both pre-existing and existing.
Um, pre-existing. Full Metal Alchemist was amazing, and
Oh
it would
man.
have been really, really cool to be a part of that. I was in Fairy Tale, but I was a mom, and she was just in a very short little, arc. So it'd be cool to have been a character that was a little bit more, just more to the storyline, I guess. Because those are your classics, Fairy Tale. Um, yeah, that's some of it. I just any opportunity I get, I enjoy. So I try not to take any of it for granted and be grateful for all of it.
I think you might have a chance at My Hero, because I've read the manga. I won't say which characters, but there are female characters in the show that have not appeared yet. So hopefully, maybe they'll get you a more substantial role than just like additional voices, or because I'm gonna say this, like they don't last too long in the show, but they have an arc, so
Mhm.
they are in there. So hopefully you get to voice. I'm already picturing you playing either the more heroic or the more villain, because there's gonna be more. It's just I think you'd be better for the villainous character. Actually, I know you play the villains, but I think
I
you could
love
play the
it.
villainous character that's coming up in my, or at least that's in the manga of My Hero, because she's, um, I'm not gonna try to spoil too much, but she's very like aggressive.
Mhm.
So. I think it'd be cool to be like, and also like an action villain, like
Yeah.
more aggressive, and then you'll have like fight scenes, you know. Yeah.
I love villains are so fun. I mean, heroes, the protagonists, great. I obviously everyone would love to be the protagonist in a show, but villains are so fun.
Yeah, there's Robert Cullen was telling me like there's more leeway with villains because they're already established. You know,
Mhm.
they have their ideals. Heroes are still being built up. Villains are there already, so you don't have to worry about like trying to be, you know, like a superhero like training their way up. Like you're good. Like you
Yeah.
start off evil, you are evil. Like go.
Yes.
So the last question I have here is from Julian from What's in My Head podcast. He asked, "What line of dialogue would you say defined your character for you?" So this would be regarding to Miranjo,
I don't know. I can't say that I remember any of her specific lines.
or it could just be a moment.
Yeah, the moment in when she's in the other not the underworld, just the other world with Boji's mom and her mom. And she has that emotional moment where she's like, "You're not going to tell me what to do." And I feel like that is her saying, like that was her moment of change. Like they're telling her she should change and she's like, "No." But it made her think, and then she does ultimately change for the good. So I think that is the moment for her where she has her major character shift, and it's just such an emotional moment. So I would say that's a very defining scene for her, for the her character arc.
That's a good moment. Yeah, I do also like the part where she's like after they all come back and everything's settled and Daida is back in his body, and like she's willing to take whatever punishment, and then out of
Mhm.
nowhere Daida just like, all right, I'm gonna marry you. Just like
What?
I was not expecting that. I thought that was so funny, just that Daida, because like Daida's a kid, you know, he's very young, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna marry you, you know, and
Yeah,
it's
and
just
she's like ageless because again, we get this idea that she's been around a long time, kind of like King Boss. So I do remember in that instance because we didn't know that was coming, and like
yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, uh oh, cougar. Caitlin was like, okay, let's try to like pitch you up a little bit so you don't sound quite so much creepy older than. So she's like, just dive in a little bit more into your softer, higher range, so it's not so creepy.
I love Tilling's reaction too, though. She's like, "What?
Are you?
Like, like we just got done doing all of this, and now you just want to marry her? Like, what the
Yeah,
hell?"
yeah.
Oh, I thought that was good. Well, Brianna, as we come to the end here, again, thank you for your time. I really appreciated just hearing your thoughts on Ranking of Kings and just learning more about you as an actress. I do hope that in the future, if you ever want to come back on the show here, I love to have you back on just to talk more about anything and everything. But I do wish you nothing but the best, you know, not just to your career, but to your family as well. I hope everything goes well for you.
Oh, thank you. You have been a delight to talk to, and I would be happy to anytime in the future.
Perfect. Well, you know, before we end things here, as for the fans and followers who do want to follow you, how can they do that?
Super simple. I'm Voices by Bree on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So
Perfect.
go give me a like or a follow.
Perfect. And I'll have that in the show notes and description of the episodes here on YouTube or on any podcasting platform you listen to. But yeah, so this is pretty much it. This is episode 129. Again, thank you so much, Brianna. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Have a great day. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to give a review and rate Spoiler Force Podcast. If you want to get all Spoiler Force updates or even peeks at behind the scenes, you can join the Spoiler Force Discord community. And if you'd like to show support, give tips, recommendations, sponsorships, or any collaborations, you can email me at rickyvang92@gmail.com.